There is new news out of the Hockey Canada case, and here is what we know.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and today I am joined by my co-host, Nick Zararis. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm hungry, but there's work to be done here. There's important work to be done.
And before we get into today's episode is actually brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Today, we are going to be talking about the latest update out of the Hockey Canada case, from statements from the London Police Department, and really just what we know and the responsibilities of, the sport, the executives, and what journalists owe to the victim, basically, because you have to do right by that. But make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. Obviously, trigger warning for mentions of sexual assault going forward through this episode. Today, one of the news outlets, what was it, Globe and Mail or something, they announced and released that 5 players from the Team Canada 2018 team will be surrendering to the police and will be charged with sexual assault. And conclusions can be drawn. I don't want to connect the dots, but we'll find out eventually.
That's what authoritatively we know, that there are 5 players who are going to be surrendering to the authorities. That's what we know for sure. There's been a lot of speculation based on a number of players, including somebody on the Flames, about their possible roles in this situation, because multiple players using all the same language about taking a leave of absence to deal with personal matters. Oh, so the players in question: Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, a player that's been in Switzerland, Sweden, somewhere overseas. Yeah, playing overseas the last couple of years. The Senators have retained his rights, but he has not played in the NHL since. And then 2 players on the New Jersey Devils in McLeod and
Foot.
I'm drawing. Yeah, and Cal. I forget Calfoot's on the Devils. In my brain, he's still a Lightning prospect. But yeah, those are the 5 players that all were given leave of absence. Oh, and Carter Hart of the Flyers. I don't remember if I said Carter Hart or not, but those are the 5 players that have all taken leave of absences from their respective teams, and that's what we know for sure. Anything more than that is somebody just saying things they can't know authoritatively. So, and in the interest of being responsible, that's how we're going to phrase this so far. This is what we know, and you can draw your conclusions based on that.
Yeah, I think that that's really the only fair way to go, because, like you said, nothing is official from any sort of credible source. And like I said at the top of the show, you owe it to really the case to be respectful and handle things with care, because there's a victim involved, and this isn't, some hockey Twitter drama beef or anything. Like, there's a real human being on the other side of this.
Yeah, and it takes a lot. I mean, you think that this person already dealt with this during the civil process of this case a few years ago, and to have to relitigate this and deal with the fact that they are going to have to be involved in this case from a criminal proceeding, to have to testify, to be drawn on as a witness, it is just there's the sports world is so inequipped for covering non-transaction news. I
Yeah.
it really is astounding. And then, we'll talk about this more, but just the tepid cowardness of the people who, frankly, after the last couple of years have said they're going to do a better job being sensitive, being respectful of victims, and just really only phoning it in, just
Yeah.
sharing what other people have written, sharing the news from other outlets as opposed to lending their voice to amplify what they should be amplifying important stories. It's really discouraging. Before we started recording, you and I both went back and forth saying this just sucks. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, we do just want to talk about hockey. We really do. But
Right.
unfortunately, we're stuck in these types of situations where we have to talk about this stuff. It's important that we talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. And uh, we're not here to carry the NHL's water or the Flames, any of that. We're here to report on hockey and things involving the Flames. And right now, there is a potential possibility that Dylan Dubé is involved, and we have to talk about it. So, if you are on Twitter engaging in this stuff, um, b- be thoughtful, I guess, is my biggest thing.
Be thoughtful, and it's okay to, A, step away, and B,
Mhm.
you don't have to have an opinion about everything. Those are the two golden rules for using Twitter in particular, because it's mostly conversation driven, unlike the other platforms. Take a deep breath. If you are uncomfortable, by all means, step away, remove yourself. Don't subject yourself to stuff that's going to make you uncomfortable. And then the alternative, you don't need to have an opinion about everything. That's where people get into trouble, is trying to have an
Mhm.
opinion about everything. You can just have your thoughts to yourself, and that's perfectly fine. When you start engaging and you start, well, no, I wasn't starting to say that. I wasn't being serious. Once you start getting into once you start getting involved into arguments and trying to one up and moralize, and we're talking about a real, like you said a few minutes ago, we're talking about a real situation with real people in it. This isn't something to get internet points for.
No, and just because you correctly speculated after players announced leaves of absence, you don't get a cookie. You don't
No.
get a prize. There's no badge of honor for this. And it's not like you shouldn't want to be right about any of this.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate situation, and you we have to move forward and see how this unfolds. And like we mentioned before, the things that we talk about are only going to be coming from credible sources. This isn't going to be first name bunch of numbers tweeted that this one's not involved and they're actually just a witness. Like, no, it's not how it's gonna work here. And the police department will be doing a press conference as well, on Monday, February 5th. So that's a little less than 2 weeks away, and that's probably when we'll have a real idea of how things are going to move forward. But this is the starting point.
Yeah. The one last thing on that, the assumption, and Rick West had reported a few weeks ago that they have, I want to say, a week and a half, 2 week period of time to surrender themselves,
Mhm.
which is probably why that press conference is scheduled for about, 10 days, 2 weeks from now, as opposed
Mhm.
to right now, as this story is really starting to develop and take note. So as news comes in, we'll be able to react more accordingly. But for now, this is the responsible path and the responsibility we have to you guys as our audience.
Yes, and we are going to talk about hockey's responsibility coming up after this. But first, we are going to take a quick break and talk to you about Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at indeed.com/locked on. And just go to indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday. It's always, well, I wouldn't say it's always a good time, but happy to keep everyone informed with the happenings in the Flames world.
Yeah, no, this directly ties to the Flames and something the organization's going to have to deal with it. We can start from the very simple. The responsibility the organization has is to do the right thing, And unfortunately, because this is, ultimately this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that has to worry about optics and public perception more than doing the right thing. That's why you have teams giving very generic, no comments, or in the case of the Flames, and I really hope the Flames did not use the mental health defense for Dubé's explanation for his leave of absence to try and take some of the heat and speculation off of him, especially because you directly have a player who's been very open and very frank about their struggle over the last 2 years in Oliver Chillington, that it's wholly irresponsible to do that.
Yeah, and I truly hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because, again, using mental health as like a shield to try to make things look better or not what may happen seem a little bit easier, or to be like, oh no, he's not involved, and kind of whatnot. It's disgusting. Like, you have a guy who is quite literally just returning after 20 months away from the NHL, and he was very honest about his battle with mental health and how difficult things were. So to throw a blanket over this and say that's what it is when it's not, if it's not, I'm going to look at things very, very differently.
Yeah, no, it is it is ridiculous that is something that public relations teams are going to use in trying to draw attention away from something. You can do what every other team did and just say he's taking a leave of absence. By using mental health as you said, a blanket to try and obfuscate the reason for his absence, it's a real it's just, frankly, it's disappointing. You want your organization to A, do the right thing, and B, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, my perspective on this has always been these organizations, these teams, they're at the end of the day are trying to sell you a product. They are asking you to spend a lot of money and a lot of time to invest yourself in it. If they are going to ask you to spend a lot of money and hawk all kinds of goods and other merchandise on top of just the game experience, they need to be honest with you. They need to be transparent with you. And something like this is something that if what we allegedly think is going to happen happens, is going to look really bad for the Flames. And every team looks bad in this situation because in the case of these teams have an idea of what's going on. There will be the generic, oh, we didn't know, we heard things, but weren't sure, which is how people get away with this type of stuff. So it's really unfortunate, and the type of thing that, will make people reevaluate their relationship with the Flames if they really did do this.
And I really can't say that I blame them.
No, not in the slightest.
And I hope I'm wrong. I hope
Yeah.
that he's not one of the 5, and hopefully, maybe it truly is something going on that is unrelated, and something else will come out, but as of right now, that doesn't really seem to be the case. Ryan Huska just said at practice this morning that he learned the news when everyone else did, and that's the first step in this. Oh, I didn't know. You're avoiding any sort of connection or uh, responsibility, I guess, to knowing anything.
Nope. And I understand why people have to say these things, why they can't say things like, oh, we feel bad, we're sorry, because that's taking some level of accountability and laws and that kind
Yep.
of stuff. But it's unfortunate that we have to do these types of song and dances to avoid legal culpability, which, yes, as a billion-dollar
Mhm.
corporation, I understand. You have to defend your company, but there is some level of at some level there needs to be an I'm trying to think of the word, an element of humanity here where we need to have empathy for other people. I mean, we're still in a day and age where the NHL doesn't have a concrete sexual misconduct policy. We're in the year 2024 and there is no concrete sexual misconduct policy. I'm not positive if the NHL is a mandatory report organization. Like, I know USA Hockey is a mandatory report organization for both for racist and sexual misconduct stuff. USA Hockey is a mandatory report organization, which, if you're not familiar, this is usually a thing for like state employees, where if you hear about something that happens that's wrong, that rises to a certain threshold, you have to report it no matter what, and you
Mhm.
can get in trouble yourself if you don't report it. So USA Hockey has it. I'm not positive if the NHL is or isn't a mandatory report organization, but at this day and age, you need to have a standardized misconduct policy that's in writing. You need to have anonymous report systems where victims or people who know what's happened are able to come forward and report this stuff, because this allows a culture of silence and secrecy where people can get away with it because they don't feel comfortable. They don't have if you don't have that report system to give people a level of protection from retaliation, it's really hard for people to come forward and to be honest.
Yeah, and it feels like we were just saying this about Chicago and the Kyle Beach situation,
Yep.
and people did the whole, "Oh, my hockey team would never" song and dance then, and they're
Nope.
doing it now, and it's like, that's not true. The culture that was bred in Chicago is not isolated to Chicago. This is a
Nope.
hockey thing, and it's beyond broken, and something has to change for the teams or the league to not have any sort of uh, reporting or true policy for misconduct. Like, to me, that is a lapse, a complete lapse of judgment and call from the league, but also the Players Association. Wouldn't you want something?
Well, and the Players Association, no, because it's the Players Association's job to defend these people, even if they are in the wrong, which is the other part of this that becomes
Mhm.
a moral quandary of, yeah, these guys are all going to get, a legal defense, as is their right. And the Players Association is going to do everything in their power to protect their respective reputations, because they're members of the union. I forget what the last point I was going to make was. So if you don't have anything else, I think we're good to move to talking about our friends in the media.
Yeah. I guess just be smart. Be just be smart and
Be
do better.
kind.
Yes,
Be
be
kind. Yeah.
kind. And look at if you see something, say something. That's it. But coming up next, we are going to talk about journalists and media members' responsibilities when it comes to handling this and unfortunately other situations like this. And before we do that, let me talk to you about Sleeper. It is past the halfway point in the season, Flames fans, and we are past the point of no return. Regardless of where we are in the standings, I do want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, or McKinnon will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Flames fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Thanks everyone for tuning into today's episode. Make sure you're following us on social media at Jess Belmosto and at Nick Zararis. The media.
It's you and I have talked about this more than once. The problem
Unfortunately.
the problem within the hockey media landscape is the insiders are not doing journalism, conventional journalism. Conventional journalism, you have sources, you report the sources. Insiders are not doing journalism because they are reporting what is being told to them. They are not doing investigation. They are not confirming or verifying. They are publishing what they are told. And that's level number 1. Level number 2, the vast majority of these guys, not all insiders, but most of them are employed by television networks or news organizations that have direct financial responsibilities to the NHL, where they are partners. It is very difficult for me, somebody who understands how the real world works, at this day and age, if you are an employee of a multi-billion-dollar organization that is paying the league the right to broadcast its games, I struggle to believe you are going to do your best to report stuff that's going to make the league look bad. There are very serious ethical a graying of ethical lines that's happened in the last 5 to 10 years where I struggle to believe a lot of what I am told from insiders because they have direct financial incentive to do what's right for the league.
Yep. And that's why reporters like Rick Westhead and Katie String of The Athletic have really become two, I would say, trusted sources when it comes to this kind of investigative
For sure.
journalism, and why, they're willing to put in the hard work and to get the information verified or to track down other sources. It's not just whatever is told to them or texted to them by an agent.
That's I forget who I did. I helped somebody with a college project on this a few years ago, and they asked me, what do you think the biggest issue with journalism right now? And it's that there's no money anywhere.
Mhm.
All of these people that have to do that, all of the people that are still making money in journalism are either independent on their own, or they are effectively doing public relations via journalism through these big companies. I understand. I understand that you have to make some sacrifices for the purposes of your job. You're not going to be able to report everything you are told, that you have to look out for yourself too. But part of journalism is being able to question authority. And when that news breaks, and then 5 minutes later we get the expansion statement from the Salt Lake City people, let's have a little common sense and a little tact here to realize,
Right.
oh, they're trying to throw a smoke bomb in that direction to make us look at this as opposed to what just got reported. Like
Yeah.
it's insulting to the audience at times the way insiders use social media and their audience by extension to just it genuinely feels like being trolled. Like, how it genuinely feels like these are professional trolls where it's, we'll see what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. Just
Mhm.
at some point, have some professionalism. Like,
Impossible.
I'm not asking for a lot here, man.
No, you're not, and that's the thing is, like, the bar is, barely off the floor, and they can't reach it, and for people to say, "Oh, well, like, the timing's just funny," like, I don't think that the people releasing the press release do you not think everything is coordinated? Everything is
There
coordinated. As someone that has
Especially when it
worked.
comes to these statements. These
Yeah,
public relations statements are drafted and take several days, if not weeks, to put together. They go through multiple layers of approval, and they get sent to these reporters at specific times for a specific reason.
right.
There's a
Exactly,
reason the
and
NHL drops news at Friday nights at 8 o'clock, because they don't want people to see it.
that is literally why everyone over the summer said that an update for this was going to happen either on a holiday weekend or on a Friday at like 5 o'clock after everyone has kind of turned in and the news cycle is different over the weekends, especially during, like free agency or the dead of summer. Like it is very insulting to basically play your audience like this. No, I don't want to believe that people are that stupid because they're not.
No, no. The average person who uses social media now is infinitely more skeptical of everything. That has good things and it has bad things. Don't get me wrong. It is bad that people are skeptical of everything, but they can smell it. They know what it looks like. They can pick up the scent every now. They can pick up the scent of when something doesn't add up.
Yeah, and I have a hard time believing that the people that are making careers off of hearing things from other agents and whatnot, just simply didn't hear anything on this or any sort of
Well, you know
other
why? You know
movement.
why? You know why none of them knew
It
anything
makes them
about
look
this?
bad.
No, because this is actual news where you have to talk to people that aren't agents,
Yeah.
where you have to
Oh,
talk to people
yeah.
that aren't in the boys club. This would require picking up your phone, dialing the police department, and finding out what's going on, as opposed to just getting a
Yeah.
text or an email. That's that at the end of the day. Like, when insiders don't beat the team report, like when a trade happens or a free agent happens and the team
Yeah.
announces the transaction. That's because it didn't go through central registry yet, and central registry didn't send out the email to the agents. Like, a couple of
I
years
love
ago,
that.
I forget what year it was at the deadline where Bob McKenzie explained this, because it was it was like 1 o'clock. It was the middle of that dead period on the deadline day where they're
Mhm.
waiting for the news to come in, and he explained it. Everybody gets the same email. All of these people have access to the NHL central registry,
Mhm.
and they're all on the same email list. If it doesn't go through there, they don't
No
know,
one's
and
hearing
that's
it.
Nope. That's why the social media teams of the various teams, the Islanders knew Patrick Waugh was going to be the Islanders social media team knew Patrick Waugh was going to be their coach before any of the insiders.
And that's cool. I think that there's some element of fun to that, but not in uh, big situations. I think that reporting should be equal across the board, and you should be just as eager to report on things like this and uh, any sort of bad publicity, I guess, the same way you are about this player getting traded or that one signing with this team in free agency because it's hockey.
Yeah.
It's hockey. And it's just incredibly disappointing, especially after people in the media said after the Kyle Beach situation and all of that came out, "Oh, I'll be better." Will you? Have you been? I don't think so.
I'm making a point of getting both my hands in my frames so people watching on YouTube can see me shrugging right now.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else to add before we wrap up today's show?
I quote him all the time. Matt Dumba said it during that period in the bubble in 2020 when they protested playing games and it took the NHL being shamed into canceling games, that hockey is a great game, but it could be a whole lot better, and it starts with all of us.
And there you have it. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. And thank you all for tuning in. And stay safe, stay warm, put on some chapstick, and drink some water.